My name is Kayla Gibson. I am a graduating senior.
My name is Ebony Graham, and I'm an alum of the Masterman class of 2019.
Hi, my name's Brooke Thomas, and I am Masterman class of 2020.
My name is Ty Parks, and I went to Masterman from 7th grade, and I graduated from the high school in 2015.
My name is Asia Ng. I am a member of the graduating class of 2020.
Hello, my name is Murphy Applin Jr., and I'm a part of the Masterman Middle School graduating class of 2013.
What's up? I'm Raymir, class of 2020.
My name is Moreland. I'm from the graduating class of 2019.
My name is Madison Tyler. I am class of 2020.
Hello, I am Professor Courtney Patterson-Faye, and I am a member of the class of 1999.
Hi, my name is Julian Richardson, and this year I was a senior.
Hello, my name is Shahla Mukhtar, and I'm from Masterman class of 2020.
My name is Yende Mangum. I'm in the Masterman class of 2020.
Hi, I'm Ebun. I'm a senior at Masterman.
Hi, my name's Alina, and I graduated Masterman class of 2020.
Hi, my name is Nuwar Osman, and I'm a graduating senior.
When I started at Masterman, I was in the 6th grade, and I was a little bit anxious because most of the people in my grade were going to have been together for a year before I even got there, but I was really lucky and able to make great friends, some of whom I'm friends with today. When I was in 6th grade, my friend group was about as diverse and about as non-white as any of my friend groups at Masterman have been. I'm not saying that when I was in middle school I actively tried to not be friends with white people. They were just the people who I gravitated towards.
I went to an all-black elementary school, 99% black, the other 1% was Hispanic kids, and I grew up in West Philly, not like University City, like fake diet pseudo West Philly. Like I grew up in Overbrook, West Philly, like west.
When you're in 6th grade, or at least when I was in 6th grade, I knew that I was black, and I knew that other people were white or Asian or Hispanic or any other race or of any other culture, but I didn't understand the gravity of my own blackness and the blackness of the people around me and how it would affect us as we grew up.
So my whole school is on the top 2 floors of a church, and our cafeteria was in the basement, and it was super small. So when I came to Masterman, it was big and cool, and like everything seemed new, but like you quickly discover that Masterman is just not the place you think it is. No matter how diverse it seems, it's just not what you think it is.
Being a black Muslim student in Masterman definitely has opened me to face a lot of microaggressions. When I first started to wear a hijab in 6th grade, I've witnessed a lot of encounters with my peers that just made me question myself a lot, and it's never something that I wanted to do when I was sure of my choice, and I never wanted to second guess myself, but the things that I experienced and witnessed from other people around me had to make me go through that.
I remember having a student tell me that I was the color of his black t-shirt, but as a middle schooler, I didn't really see these things as like racist or even wrong in a sense.
In middle school, like I had someone call me the N-word for the first time, and I had absolutely no idea how to react to them. It's just, like, especially in middle school, I was the quiet kid. I couldn't even stand up to a fly, let alone like someone in my class, someone who I'd have to see on a daily basis. I could not stand up to them, but it made me feel so awkward. It's like, who wants to be called that, Because if it was any other slur to any other person of another race, like, it wouldn't be cool. Like, it's just not something you say to people.
Middle school, I didn't really completely like see all of the microcosms and also just like outright discrimination that was around me, but I think I understood it to some extent, and I sort of just tried to push it away. Sometimes the only way to cope is to move forward and sort of just pretend like it isn't happening.
When black students bring up issues with a person or a teacher, whether it's a single incident or repeated incidents. Oftentimes, you bring this up to white or non-black students, a common response is often, well, I've had really positive experiences with this person or teacher, so therefore your feelings aren't valid or it doesn't matter. And I think that we're often told to just forget about things and just stop holding a grudge, get over it.
Where a lot of the backlash comes about is when people say that racism was always prevalent in Masterman communities, amongst Masterman teachers, amongst Masterman students. And then when they say that, people who disagree or didn't experience racism personally try to say that no, that like that's not valid, like you didn't experience that each day, like you didn't experience that enough for you to say that you had a horrible high school experience.
I've heard and received many culturally insensitive and racist remarks throughout my time at Masterman. Yet even more prevalent than that is the lack of a response from the students around me. The lack of a reaction or just an acknowledgement that that's not okay.
Back in middle school, I was told to go back to the fields by another student in 6th grade, and my hair always got made fun of when I was younger in middle school.
There was one time I was walking to my advisory. This is me when I started to grow my hair. I was really proud of it. Some of you may know, hair for a significant portion of Black people is very significant culturally and personally, honestly. And so yeah, I was trying to grow out my hair, and it's important to take care of your hair. It's important to constantly comb through it so that it doesn't tangle up. And so I'm in school, I'm walking to my advisory, and I'm picking my hair out. And all of a sudden the teacher comes up to me and grabs my head and pulls the pick out of my hair and says, "Why are you wearing this?" And I'm like, what the heck are you, what are you doing? And she was like, "You don't see me walking around with a toothbrush in my mouth. You don't see me walking around brushing my teeth all day. This isn't appropriate. But I see girls around me, white girls with scrunchies and hair ties and stuff in their hair, but that's not an issue."
And like, even those things, I've kind of suppressed them because I'm like, it's so long ago, like it's not even that big of a deal, but like I still think about those things today, so they obviously are still big deals.
That was in middle school, or that was last year. I haven't had a problem with that teacher or person before, so therefore you should stop complaining or stop being so dramatic. And that is kind of just telling us to push away our feelings instead of actually addressing the root of the problem.
Something that I pretended like it wasn't happening for a long time was being dress coded constantly by adults. There was a point in middle school where I looked around at the white girls that were in my grade that I was friends with and realized that like myself and other Black girls were being dress coded at a rate that was so much higher than that of the white girls.
I remember I had on shorts, and so did one of my friends, but every girl in the grade had shorts on because it was around 90 degrees that day. A teacher came up to the two of us in the lunchroom and said that our shorts were too short and next time wear longer ones. But then I looked around in the lunchroom and she was talking to some of the white female students that had on shorts just as short, if not shorter than mine, as if nothing was wrong. What's the difference between me and them? Why do I get dress coded and they don't? Over the years, you kind of start to realize, okay, as a Black girl, what I wear is most likely going to be scrutinized a little bit more than some of the other girls in my grade because of unfair biases that these teachers may have.
When I was in 7th grade, there was an aide in our class for one of the students, and we were doing a project in class. We were outside, and I was talking to him, and he was very friendly, and he socialized with a lot of the kids. The teacher was getting like increasingly frustrated with the fact that I was talking to him, and so she asked for me to meet her in her office after class. And when we got there, she was like, "I know that you have a crush on this guy." And I was like 13, and he was like early to mid-20s probably. And I did not have a crush on him, and I had never like thought about that before. She kind of let me off the hook, but she was like, you need to get this under control. And I was kind of like, I didn't really know what she was talking about. I think that that's just like one example of the kind of hyper-sexualization of young Black girls that I think took place a lot.
I remember being at school and a friend literally coming to get me out of my class so I could switch pants with her because she was taller than me and she was wearing a skirt and she was dress coded for it and she didn't have anything else to wear. So she literally asked me for my pants and I gave them to her and I wore her skirt because I was shorter and it showed up longer on me. That just saying that out loud is ridiculous. Like, she came to get me out of class and that was permissible because she had to change her clothes.
Me watching Black girls wear the same brandy dress as white girls in our grade, and the Black girls getting dress coded and being told like to put on a gym uniform, to cover up, to throw on a lost and found sweater that reeks.
I would look down sometimes at my clothes after I was dress coded or when I was getting dressed in the morning and just feel really angry, but also like upset with myself. It made me feel gross about my body and it sort of made me feel like my body didn't belong to me, like it was just something for people to look at because obviously people were looking at it if I was constantly getting dress coded.
Masterman uses racist tactics to weed out Black and brown people from the middle school, from being admitted into the high school.
Unfortunately, the color of my skin has certainly played a role in some of my interactions with teachers. Although each incident may seem small, over time as they start to pile up, it can really have an effect on you. It can really take a toll.
Black students were sorted into the ones that were good and the ones that weren't really the Masterman type, not the ones who like sat down and listened and just did work the way that teachers would have wanted them to.
I tried to keep up with at least like the academic rigor of the school because it was hard competing with white kids who literally lived right behind Masterman on Brandywine Street, which is what the Black students were expected to be able to do, which was impossible. But I could do the things that would have my white teachers looking at me in a much more positive light than they're looking at my Black student peers, which is sad because from the jump, there's a competition. You knew what cards you were dealt and you did whatever you had to do in order to survive at this predominantly white institution. Survive meaning make it to the high school. The teachers never let us forget that, ever.
Your teacher's opinion of you really matters when it comes to your admission into the high school. So I just constantly felt this like vibe from adults that I was different than the kids that I was friends with. They were like troublemakers. They were like wasting potential. When I would see similar behavior from my white peers.
Even as like a 12-year-old, I always felt as though the students that looked like me were bullied by their teachers, in a sense, like teachers nitpicked on certain children.
You know, a lot of students, a lot of people I was close to did not decide to come to Masterman High School because of those microaggressions they faced and how teachers would call them out and like make them seem like criminals in their classroom and separate them from the group and always have to pick on them for little things that they were doing, always have their eyes on those students when there's other students around them who are engaging in the same behavior.
I'm tired of being the only one heard and singled out in a room where everyone's talking.
Some just weren't that quote-unquote model student, and they didn't have to be. Like, that's not what every student is, and definitely every white student at Masterman isn't that.
Sometimes students will not pay attention or they will get out of focus, but I feel like the teachers, whenever it came to Black students, it was always a major deal and they always had to target them, and it was just not fair.
Oftentimes, in a class, you're looked at as the spokesperson for your race, that you are, if you behave a certain way, everyone else who looks like you will behave in that very same way.
As time went on, there were students that were more targeted by teachers, especially in middle school, like I said before. And what that meant was each year, it's like they went into a school year where teachers kind of knew who they were and they were marked. And by the time it came to choosing high school, a lot of them wanted to leave because they felt targeted, especially Black men.
The consequences for making a mistake as a Black student are twice as harsh.
I loved acting, so I would bring cameras to school when we'd have like little plays in ABC class, and instead of just performing it for the teacher and then being done with it, I'm like, I want to record it, I'm going to put it on iMovie, I'm going to edit it, and it's going to be a feature film. And I did it a couple of times throughout the last 2 years of my middle school career. And I would be taking pictures of everybody and just trying to keep memories and stuff. And then I was like, all right, well, I got to do something with these pictures. So what could I do? We were graduating in 8th grade, so I was like, ooh, I could make a little 8th grade memories movie. You know, we could have a yearbook and we could have a little documentary of all of the great times that we had. So as soon as 8th grade started, I hit the ground running. I'm taking pictures of everybody in my class. I'm taking pictures of the teachers that we would have. I record our poetry competition in 7th and 8th grade. And I recorded our talent shows, both years. And then in March, we're taking the PSSAs. And I have my cameras on me. They're in my book bag, just chilling. You know, I'm not crazy or nothing. After I finished taking the test, I just pull the camera out and I'm taking pictures of the other kids who are just, you know, who are done taking the test or whatever. Stupid, but I'm doing it. I'm having fun. Everybody else is having fun. And then I'm like, ooh, I got a little idea. How about I open this little PSSA test up to take a picture of my writing response, because I was so obsessed with how well I wrote my creative response. And I wanted to keep it because I could turn it into a bigger project. I could turn it into a movie like I've been doing. And then the teacher in the room just looks up from whatever she was doing on her cell phone and sees me taking pictures. So she's like, oh, absolutely not. She grabs my camera, she calls the office, then she sends me into the office. And now I'm terrified, because I've never been in trouble. I don't do anything wrong. So I have to explain to all of the secretaries who I've developed great relationships with over the last couple of years why I'm in the office. So I'm like completely humiliated. I have to have all of these meetings with the principal, the assistant principal, the counselor. My parents got called to the school. They're pissed. And over the next couple of days, we just have meeting after a phone call to the classroom to get me to have to walk all the way down to the office to have another meeting. It's just like nonstop. They ended up having to call the state to figure out what to do with the likes of me. I don't know what they said, but I know that the situation with the camera and the picture of the test got handled quickly. The situation with punishing me was a completely different situation than the one that was actually needing to be handled. My punishment was a 3-day in-house suspension, and I was crushed. I knew that I couldn't keep up academically, so I'm trying to be a perfect person in front of all of these people, and that was just snatched right from under me, just because I wanted to express myself. So I had to sit in the 6th grade hallway outside of the dean's office for everybody to see. I felt like I was being hung on the cross. The teachers that I had developed all these relationships would ask me, why am I here? And I'd be like, oh, let me explain this situation to you, old friend, since that's who we are to each other, right? You still like me? Completely humiliating, to say the least. The next morning, I'm like in the auditorium. The Black assistant principal at the time is just standing over us, like a military officer, just watching us, making sure that nobody gets out of line. And I walked up to her and asked her, I was like, okay, so now, since I've done my time, can I have my camera back and my SD card so I can continue being a good artist, the human being that I want to be? And she was like, oh no, we had to destroy that. We had to let that go. I had to crush it. I was like, are you gonna give me $40 to pay for another SD card since you're so happy to let me know how you had to punish me? But at the same time, me being, 12, 13 years old, I shouldn't have had to experience nothing like that. Y'all could have destroyed the SD card. You could have destroyed the camera. I did not need to have nothing on my record like that. Embarrassing and humiliating is an understatement.
It's sort of obvious that those Black kids who are deemed like troublemakers or like problem children, they don't make it to Masterman High School. And maybe it's because they don't get in, or because if they get in, they're like, why would I want to spend more time at a place where I'm subjugated and where it makes me feel awful all the time?
We see the impact of that when we look at our graduating classes. There's so few Black students. In my year, it was, I think, 11 Black students, around that number, which is so low. And then the number of Black men was even lower.
It saddened me when I went to the high school in 9th grade and only saw 9 or 10 Black men in my class.
It is especially hard to thrive in an environment where you're in isolation.
I've grown up around black people my whole life. Family, teachers, peers, friends, everyone around me was Black.
Within my own friend group, I often felt like a token, and I think that a lot of that is just a symptom of this bigger problem with, you know, why are there not that many Black kids here?
All of my 8 years at Masterman, there's been an underrepresentation of Black people as teachers and as students. I don't think it quite reflects the Philadelphia school district.
Our city has a very large demographic of Black people, but yet our top school does not reflect the way in which our city is made up.
Like, why are there so little Black kids in this entire high school that they can all plausibly fit into one room, and they do it for AACC? Like, most Black kids in the high school are in AACC, and they can fit into one room pretty comfortably, which is so beyond upsetting for me.
All of my years of high school and some of middle school, there have been cases where I was the only Black student in a class, and the only Black boy at that.
Not having any Black man as my teacher for the entire time I was there. Only having 1 or 2 Black women teaching me. And, you know, that type of thing messes with you. It messes with the way you think about yourself. It messes with your self-esteem. It's harder to see yourself as an intellectual when the people that you're supposed to be looking up to don't look like you at all.
I realized it in 10th grade. Whenever I read a book or a magazine or any sort of media literature without a face attached to it, like if I'm not watching a movie or a video, I instantly picture the person as white. And I realized this in Miss Taylor's history class in 10th grade when we're learning about like ancient civilizations, and she would say like Egypt, ancient Egypt, and I would picture the people as white, and then in my head I would be like, wait, no, like I'd have to remind myself these are Black people we're talking about.
I know that we're especially thankful for the Black teachers and administrators that we have.
You have to go out of your way to try and find mentors that look like you, when the white students have them at the tip of their fingers.
After reading the stories on Instagram, I was like, this kind of stuff seems foreign to me. I don't remember it being like this when I was at Masterman, middle school or high school. And then I kept scrolling, and I was like, okay, I remember. And even earlier today, I had an exchange with a white female classmate, and it reminded me that white students at Masterman have no idea about the interior lives of Black students at Masterman.
The Masterman community needs to realize that the added difficulty that comes with being a Black student at Masterman. I've noticed I've had to prove my aptitude and abilities more so than my white and non-Black peers. I've noticed that since I first came to the school.
During the start of my senior year, I think I was ranked 10. Oh, I did share this on an Instagram page. I don't mind being not anonymous. And it was at the beginning before my AP grades, hit. And I got into Penn. We had gotten our acceptances. And this student said something like, this white guy, that I took his spot at Penn. And of course he didn't say it to my face. No student actually said anything to my face. Teachers did, but no students actually did. And so it was like a lot of chatter among friends, among white friends. And so him saying that obviously meant that affirmative action gave me my spot, and that he as a white guy was entitled to a spot, a slot, a space at this Ivy League university. First of all, boo, I had better grades than you, ranked higher than you. I earned my spot. Don't get it twisted. I haven't talked to him in years. Barely talked to him the rest of the time there. And so, you know, stuff like that for me was the level of, you know, just like, oh, just what it is. You know, it's what it is.
I've been accused of cheating more times than I can count. I've been accused of not doing my own work, that it's not possible that I could have been the one who's done it. I've been just doubted on so many occasions, doubted and limited.
Throughout my 8 years at Masterman, I've always had my name mispronounced. So my full name is Ebun, but I go by Ebu, and like I tell all my teachers that at the beginning of the year. Me using a shortened version of my name, like I've always gone by Ebu, but it's also like a way for me to try and avoid like constant mispronunciations of my name. But it happens anyways, and it's always like, I don't even think much of it when a teacher mispronounces my name, but it's like, it kind of like, after a while of same teachers constantly saying your names wrong, it's kind of like a slap in the face. You feel like it's not even a big deal for your teacher to try and address you by the right name. It's just hard to feel like a teacher doesn't even care enough to say your name right, even though you're always correcting them, or you've told them how to say it and they still don't even try and say it right. And like even now, saying it out loud, I'm kind of like, it's not even that big of a deal, but it is, because I feel like it's important for your teacher, someone who's going to be teaching you for the whole year, to at least be able to address you correctly. And like, I know both instances aren't always intentional, like they're not intended to be racist, but they are, like in a unconscious way. They make me feel like less than, you know, I don't really know how to describe it.
So I guess that summer between 8th and 9th grade was when most people decided that they were going to be woke. There was no more like, you're as black as my t-shirt, or I'm gonna lynch your family, or any other like racist jokes being said to our faces. Everyone was fake woke, as like you'd call it now. And so the biggest issue with that happening is everyone had this idea that Masterman was like this socially woke high school where most of the students are neoliberals and not racist. Everyone has black friends, some people live in the city, and so like our students aren't capable of being racist, and our students are known for calling out racism. Masterman students adapted this idea that they weren't capable of being racist, that they were woke, and that's kind of stuff didn't happen at Masterman. So unfortunately, what did happen is everything was kind of swept under the rug. Microaggressions were still happening. They were never really addressed because we were the woke school.
I'd be lying if I said that racism has not affected me in my time here. But because it hasn't been right in your face, somebody saying, oh, I hate black people, a lot of times it'll cause me to kind of downplay it and make it seem like it's not that big of a deal to myself, when it is. Racism in any form is a big deal.
Being black at Masterman, I've experienced my own fair share of microaggressions. For one, if you know me, that you know that I'm very outspoken and I'm very out there about my thoughts, and a lot of times this is taken by white students as me being sassy or angry. And you know, anytime I was called those things, I never even considered it to be racist or a product of racism.
Just being characterized as angry as a black girl, it kind of just felt like no matter what I did, that was just going to be what people expected of me. People who I've never even really had a conversation with or been in classes with being afraid of me, saying that they just thought that I was mean.
There was this time I was kind of telling off this kid who was white, and he kind of messed with me and my friends a lot. and this white teacher came down, and I was using foul language because that seemed to be the only thing that he responded to. And she came down and she didn't ask any questions, and she just immediately, like, I think she may have grabbed me by the arm and was like, you're, you know, gonna get suspended, didn't ask any questions. And she like marched me downstairs. She was like, are your parents here? Like, I'm going to talk to them. And in my view, I was, you know, defending myself and my friends from this kid. You know, she kind of didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. She didn't ask what was going on. You know, maybe I shouldn't have used the words that I did, but I was, you know, defending myself, and she clearly wasn't there for me in that moment. You know, she was like the law and order, you know, she was making sure that, like, you know, I was gonna be put in my place. And I think she made a lot of assumptions about me based on that one interaction without really asking a lot of questions, which, you know, doesn't feel good for anybody, but especially not a kid. You know, that definitely took a toll on me. You know, I developed a number of mental health conditions while I was at Masterman, and I didn't get any help for them. I didn't get help until I went to another school.
Like, first of all, even in general, it's like kind of hard to be labeled as sassy or angry. But like, even for me as a Black woman, it's even harder because there's already these stereotypes that exist. That's all we are. Like, we're just angry or just sassy. Those things kind of like instill themselves in you.
The teacher who I hadn't really had in classes, the teacher hadn't taught me before, but I was a peer counselor, and I don't like to yell, believe it or not. It's kind of funny because I'm on pep squad, I cheer, but after every game I leave with a headache because I hate yelling. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I don't like to do it. I was trying to quiet the class down one day so that I could just, you know, talk with my inside voice, and the teacher said to me, like, you can be louder, like, you're fierce. I'm like, what is your basis in saying that? Like, if you haven't been around me, you haven't really experienced that side of me. Most of my teachers don't experience that side of me, because as you go, or as I went through high school and realized that that was what people expected of me, that was what teachers expected of me, I began to filter myself, in a sense. Police the way I talk, police the way I like emote, because I didn't want to live up to the stereotype.
And like, you really do sometimes think, at least I really do sometimes think, like, am I really angry? Like, am I really that sassy? Like, I'm always unconsciously like trying to alter how I respond to things so that I don't get called those things even more, even though it still happens anyway.
I had this moment my junior year of high school where I had an exchange with a teacher where they said something that was what I didn't, or at the time didn't perceive to be meant as like racially charged, but later that day I was talking about it with my friends during a time in class where we were allowed to talk. My teacher that I had for that period overheard me, and they, you know, just sort of quietly said to me, you know, what you just said, that's not, you know, you don't have to laugh it off, like, it's not funny, that's weird, and if that made you uncomfortable, then that makes sense. At the time, I just, you know, brushed it off, and I was like, you know, no, I think it was fine, like, it didn't upset me, and in my head, I was like, why are they overreacting to this? Like, it was just a silly little exchange. But that is just a microcosm of so many of my experiences at Masterman.
I realized that I'm definitely one of the more vocal people at my school when it comes to racism, or just things pertaining to the Black community. And even so, I definitely feel like I pick and choose my battles when it comes to who I decide to speak up to when, like, I'm experiencing a microaggression because of them. Just because I've noticed that a lot of, like, teachers or even students just won't listen. Their first response is like that they don't really see it, or that it's not that big of a deal. And they just get extremely defensive, and I feel like it affects how well they listen to what exactly I'm trying to say.
Simple apologies, pulling black students aside and saying that, oh, they didn't mean that, oh, you have to give them time to grow, you have to give them this and that, should not be the only solution.
Looking back on it, I feel embarrassed with how complacent I was and how complacent I've been, but also it's like, it was the only way to survive. If I really took the time to get angry, or, I mean, I would get angry, but if I took the time to like express that anger and frustration to the people who made me feel that way every single time that it happened, I would have no breath left. Like, I would have no time for anything else.
That's definitely something that was frustrating, and I think it's something that a lot of students experience, and it gets to the point where you will experience something that offends you or something, and like a microaggression. You'll experience a microaggression and you decide not to say anything about it.
I see my white peers consuming art and music and culture just in general that's created by black people, but they don't surround themselves with black people. It's not like all of the black kids at Masterman are like, well, we just don't talk to white people. We just don't join those groups. It's like, we're not invited to those spaces.
I think one of the big parts of my experience at Masterman was with the friend groups and learning from a very young age that, you know, I could be friends with white kids in class and I could socialize with them, but, you know, during lunch and during recess, it wasn't really a good idea for me to be like sitting with them. You know, it was never explicitly said, but you just kind of knew. You just, you know, like you didn't feel accepted or welcomed by those people at those times.
When I'm at a party, I look around and it's like me and two other black people, and we just are there because we're friends with a bigger group of kids.
I was at a party earlier this year and we were walking back to someone's house, a white friend's house from the party, and we were gonna cross through a park and like say bye to some people, but right as we got to the park, there was a cop, and me and my black friend were like, yo, we gotta go right now. And some of our white friends were like, no, we can cross through the park, like it's cool. And we were like, no, like we need to leave, like do you guys not understand? Like it was what, like 12:30? If this cop saw me and another black person, my big black ass, walking through a park at 12:30 at night on a Friday, like that just is not gonna end well. And I was like, guys, we gotta go. So I started jogging the other direction and they were like walking all slow, and the cop pulled one of us over and they continued to just walk away and like left. And then it was a big deal when we finally got back to the house, but at the time it wasn't.
Masterman is also very colorist. The closer you were, or I should say the greater proximity you had to whiteness, whether it be physical appearance or your friend groups, you became a fave. That was not lost on me.
I don't want to say people forget that I'm black, but they see me as a more palatable version of black, and therefore feel more comfortable saying things that they might censor themselves around other people and think that I won't take offense or I won't notice, but I do.
It's hard to always be the odd person out or the odd people out. It's hard to try to talk about politics with your friends or peers and have people like play devil's advocate or tell you that, you know, they think that you're being a little overzealous, and sort of just talk about it like in theory when it's like the life that you're living. I know that right now is a really like strong moment where a lot of people are being vocal for the Black Lives Matter movement, but Black Lives Matter has existed for years, and I can remember moments where I spoke about it and other black people spoke about it, and to our peers at Masterman, it was just sort of like a fleeting thing. Like, okay, this person was murdered by the police. That's awful, and I think that it was wrong, and I'm gonna say I think that it was wrong, but that's it. When it's just, again, like a byproduct of this systemic racism that I think Masterman's community sort of, I wouldn't say thrives in, but I think right now can't exist without it. It's so ingrained in the community.
Masterman was not admitting students based on their test scores, based on their intellectual abilities, but rather based on how much money their parents contributed, who they were connected to, and all different things that discriminated against Black people because of various systems of oppression that leave out Black people from the table.
The lack of desire that a mission has to bring in Black students, or consider disparities that Black students may have, or consider the lack of concern and lack of empathy that there is for Black students.
I think that Masterman's administration, Masterman Parent-Teacher Association, and many of the white students and non-Black students are complicit in the way in which our city oppresses Black communities in various neighborhoods.
If you're white, or even if you're just non-Black, you can do better to actively be anti-Black.
A lot of people don't step out of their comfort zone to recognize the racism that exists within their communities, within their homes, within their own minds. And that's something that I think everyone should challenge themselves immediately. If you're going to get anything from what I say or what others say, that's something that you should do right away. It's just go out and try to recognize racism in your life and combat it.
Masterman students just like need to get out of this bubble that's like, I live in the city, or like I live in this area of Philadelphia, like I have Black friends, like I'm a neoliberal. How could I possibly like add to racism?
Even if you have moments where you're thinking something that's racist, like, oh, like she's so mad, like all Black girls are so mad, or oh wow, that's so surprising that he knows that obscure reference, because why would Black people listen to that band or know about that artist, which is a bigger problem in itself. But you know, we all sandbox ideas in our head, and we all sandbox things that are bad, that are not socially acceptable to say, and not even not socially acceptable, but things that are hurtful and that we shouldn't let come out of our mouths, we shouldn't express. Like, we should be actively fighting those things.
It is exhausting having to go to school, make good grades, and walk out into a world, live in a world that does not want to see you alive.
Masterman students need to recognize that looking at someone, pointing at them, and calling them a racial slur isn't the only form of racism. It can be like when an African-American student gets into a good university, oh, like I'm surprised. Yeah, they're a lot smarter than they let on. That's subtle racism.
You listen to your Black friends when they tell you that the way you did something made them feel this way. You listen to your students when they pull you aside and they tell you that the way you chose to go about doing something in your classroom made them feel this way.
You can listen to Black people when they speak, especially Black women. You can stop making them feel like they are being unreasonable. You can stop tokenizing Black people. You can invite more Black people into the spaces where you hang out. You can educate yourself. There are just so many things that you can do better.
I want you to know that the one thing you can do for me, looking back over my 8 years at Masterman, the one thing that you can do for me is treat me as who I am. I may not shop where you shop, I may not listen to what you listen to, but I am a person. And there's no way you can post petitions on your story, say Black Lives Matter, live in Chestnut Hill where the hate has no home here, sign in your front lawn, but look at me as an alien in the hallway. That's just not cool.
These are experiences, these are events that stick with us our entire lives. The fact that we are able to even recount these experiences from 7, 8, 9, 10, however many years later, just goes to show how big of an impact it really does have on our experience at Masterman.
Hopefully, this documentary will be able to be seen by future Masterman generations. I hope they will use this in Diversity Day instead of watching these movies that are just like going to be used for one conversation and then thrown away in the back of our minds. Take these into account from the students who are seeing it firsthand to all of you other students who go to school with minorities and Black students who don't know what they're facing or don't acknowledge it, and all the teachers and administration who deal with them. I hope you guys take this to heart.
I don't want any other people to graduate and, like, look back on their time at a school and look back on it fondly in some ways, but also look back on it and just feel like profoundly hurt and upset.
I'm disappointed in Masterman, and I hope that this video, and I hope that everything that's going on social media pushes them to do better, because they have a responsibility and they are failing completely.